Khamzat Chimaev is the new champion, and it was kind of boring, if I'm being honest. Oh, ruined a great night of fights for sure, but we can't blame Khamzat for that. We'll get into that more later. But yes, the new middleweight king is Khamzat Chimaev. Just dominates Dricus Du Plessis. Just dominates him. There was nothing else to say about it. Like, it's just like the way that Khamzat Chimaev went out there and just controlled Dricus Du Plessis. You think someone who's like, oh, he's such a smart game planner, you know, he can do this and that. He's not worried about Adesanya or Sean Strickland. He's much better in the rematch and stuff. You look at that and you're like, man, what? You watch the Khamzat Chimaev fight, you're like, what happened to the game planner that everybody thought Dricus Du Plessis was? And it turns out Dricus is not a great game planner against fighters that are actually good. I mean, you know, Israel Adesanya's good. Sean Strickland's good enough, but they're not Khamzat Chimaev, who seems like he's a generational talent. And now he's a champion. Said he wants to turn around and fight quick. I like it. I don't hate it at all. So, you know, bring on the new era, I guess. We've got plenty of things to do. But first, he dominated Dricus. I mean, it wasn't an exciting fight. Let's be honest here. But he did rack up 21 minutes of control time in a 25-minute fight. That's mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Now, the big thing going into this was like, oh, if Khamzat Chimaev goes late into this fight, it swings more and more and more into Dricus Du Plessis' favor. And that was true to a certain extent. You know, that fifth round was absolutely Dricus' best round. But Chimaev still controlled him, and he managed to, you know, look great in the fifth round, controlling his shots. He was like one and done after that first one, you know. It was crazy, and it was cool because you could see, like, you know, the head outside, double leg, he's turning, he's pivoting on his knee. He does everything correctly, and then he just controls, and he puts you in a cycle. And the fight, even though it was like boring, I don't blame Chimaev for that. Khamzat Chimaev is controlling the fight, right? He's controlling the fight. He's making sure that he doesn't lose position, but he's also not going all out like he did against Gilbert Burns or Kamaru Usman, where he was beating him so bad that he let him back into the fight. This is a 5-round fight compared to those 2 3-rounders. Like, think back to the frantic pace of the Kevin Holland fight. That's the kind of pace we come to expect of Khamzat Chimaev. But this was so much more reserved, and it was Dricus' fault. It was Dricus Du Plessis' fault. Chimaev was like, all right, I'm going to wait for you to make a mistake, and I'm going to capitalize on it. We saw him attempt a rear naked choke a couple times. But Dricus Du Plessis did not do anything at all. So if you want to know the truth, the onus is on Dricus for making that fight boring, despite, you know, being dominant. And there were boos in the crowd and this and that and the other, and you're like, whatever, you know, that's just, they don't know what they're watching. And sure, it was dominant, but like, you compare it to like a Merab Dvalishvili, like, that wasn't a fun performance. Now he's going to get some flack for this, and it's going to help whoever he fights next on the betting odds. But it's like, you look at it and you want to blame that for Khamzat. And after I slept on it, I was like, no, that wasn't Chimaev's fault. It was Dricus not wanting to do anything. But at the end of the day, Chimaev got the win. He got, you know, the title, and we knew this from day one, it felt like. When he fought 3 times in 10 days. You remember that? Fought 3 times in 10 days. We knew then he was special. We questioned it after Gilbert Burns. We questioned after Kamaru Usman if he would be able to be special at the highest elite of the level. Then he fights Robert Whittaker, which we should have given him credit against Gilbert Burns, because Burns was a title contender. But he breaks Robert Whittaker's jaw, quite literally by face crane. He breaks Whittaker's jaw. Whew. And then he comes in here and fights the champ. The champ who's beat Whittaker, Strickland, Adesanya, and Strickland again. The last 4 fights have been against the previous 3 champions. So, like, as goofy as he is, like, Dricus does win until he fights Khamzat Chimaev. And the question was, like, will he be able to go? And apparently he can. He can pace himself. You know, the coaches he got in his new corner with I forget the coach's name, but like Arman Saryukin coach. You know, he really did control the fight. He controlled himself. And that's a champion-making performance. But, as always, you got to look at what's next for Khamzat Chimaev. Because, like, I'm of the opinion, like, welterweight's having a turnover right now. They're kind of flipping over the Whitakers, the Izzies, and the Jared Cannoniers, who also fought on this card. We'll talk about that later. And you're looking more at the Imavov, Calbarayo, RDR, all of these guys. And those are options for Khamzat Chimaev. Now, Nasruddin Imavov is an interesting one. Russian, a French guy, but he's from Russia. And I don't think he's got the striking like to beat Khamzat Chimaev. And he does control pace well. But he's just too wrestleable, if that's a word. Is wrestleable a word? Like he's just too wrestleable, though, for real. I don't think he's a problem for Chimaev at all. As a matter of fact, if that's the next fight, if he beats Calbarayo, because him and Calbarayo are booked, if he beats Calbarayo, like that's the next fight, and whatever. I don't really particularly care for it. Renner de Ritter is a little too bullyable. I'd much prefer to see Renner de Ritter fight. He's coming off of that great win over Robert Whitaker, the decision win, but like. You look at it and you're like, man, Robert Whitaker's not quite the same, but he did have some good tangible tools. But he is not physical enough. He's too bullyable. Again, wrestleable, bullyable, like two words I'm making up on the fly here, huh? But the intercepting knee to the body really kind of intrigued me in a hypothetical Chimaev versus Renner de Ritter fight. And, I don't think, de Ritter's jiu-jitsu is great. But like jiu-jitsu for MMA is way different from actual jiu-jitsu. So it's like, let's see if he can actually, control the fight there. And like, I think Chimaev would just be able to bully him. We saw like Anatoly Malikin, who's a heavyweight, but Chimaev's skills are of that caliber. And we see that, and you're like, okay, Renner de Ritter might not be the next best thing for Chimaev. No. Instead, my pick is none other than last week's main event winner, Anthony Hernandez. Now, Hernandez, that's the one I'm most excited about, but he hasn't done enough to earn a title just yet, right? He hasn't done enough to earn a title just yet, but it's the most interesting. I still have questions about Chimaev's cardio. Now, think about, like, he went 5 rounds, but what did he do? He need Dricus Du Plessis in the butt. Like, okay, whatever. Doesn't take much effort. This is far different from when he was, beating on Kamaru Usman and controlling Kamaru Usman. Like, way different fight. But what makes it interesting for Anthony Hernandez is going to come forward. Fluffy is going to come forward and bring the fight to Chimaev. He's going to hit the body of Chimaev, which is kind of why I like the Renner de Ritter matchup. He's going to bring that knee to the body. Also on the shot, Renner de Ritter can really try and find that knee up the middle to dissuade that fight. But again, I think Chimaev wins that fight on the feet. So like, are you really concerned about getting the takedown? Obviously, Chimaev will want to, but he won't have to against Renner de Ritter. Fluffy Hernandez brings a pace. He hits the body. He does everything I wanted Dricus Du Plessis to do to win a fight against Chimaev. Will he? I don't know. He gets hit early. He looked great against a really big Roman Dolidze, but Chimaev is going to shoot, whereas Dolidze, if he's being pushed backwards, won't shoot. We saw Khamzat Chimaev shoot against Dricus despite being pushed back. Think about that 5th round. Takedown one is clean, no, but they still worked. So Anthony Hernandez is my number 1 pick for the fight for Khamzat Chimaev. I think he is by far the most exciting fighter to watch against Chimaev. Now, talked about it earlier, Dricus Du Plessis stunk up the joint. Chimaev is getting the blame. It's not fair. It's not fair at all. But it was an absolute stinker of a performance from Dricus Du Plessis. How do you get put into a crucifix not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times in a fight? Now, granted, Chimaev was supposed to finish him, and it was Du Plessis who was doing the stalling. So, like, there's blame to be shared there, but, like, if Khamzat Chimaev is in a crucifix, what's he supposed to do? Like, Dricus is burying his head into the side. And the rules for MMA are quite simple, quite basic. Yeah, the get-ups at the end of the fight were kind of blah for Chimaev. Like, I don't think he deserved it. But the rules do stay, like, if neither fighter's doing enough damage, like, we should stand them up. That's in the rules. That is the MMA, Unified Mixed Martial Arts rules, which was what we were practicing under Illinois. But you could even say, like, earlier in the fight, the first round where Chimaev is doing the... I'm not going to say what that looks like, but Chimaev was doing those rabbit punches. Like, that wasn't doing anything. Didn't even hurt him. Like, you see the stat, like, Chimaev landed 500 to his 70-something. Like, yeah, but not really, you know. The problem with Dricus was that he didn't take enough chances. And I can get that in the first round. I can give you some leeway in the first round. Like, okay, he's super dangerous in the first round. Let's play it safe. Let's make sure I don't get caught in something in transition while we're dry and before I'm sweaty and while he's fresh. Let's start motioning up the motion in rounds 2, 3, and by 4 I should be in complete control. Didn't do any of that. Didn't do a single thing of that. No. Instead, Dricus was like, I'm going to make sure I don't get caught in transition ever. Drove me nuts. I'm sitting here watching round 1. I'm like, okay, that's about what I expected, except for the little rabbit punches. Then it got to the next round. I'm like, all right, what's going on here? Then the third round, I'm like, why are we in a crucifix again? Why are we in a crucifix again? Why? Truly pathetic performance. I mean, I like Dricus. He's goofy, really good trash talker. But, like, he had some good ideas against other fighters. You know, against Derek Brunson, he struggled a little bit with the wrestling. But he managed to come back and get it done. And that just goes to show you just how good Chimaev is, like, controlling somebody. Like, okay, if Du Plessis, like, not doing anything, he's content to sit there and control, which is kind of his new thing. But yeah, as the fight went on, it was just, he didn't make Khamzat Chimaev work enough. And part of the whole, you got to make Chimaev tired, and you've got to make sure he's tired in the third round by making him work. And if he's going to beat on you, make him beat on you too hard. Like, he didn't do any of that. He didn't make Khamzat Chimaev work enough. Once he got the takedown, it was like, okay, this is where we are for the rest of the day. He would scoot to the fence if it was takedown in the middle of the cage, and, you know, Dricus did a good job of that, staying on a knee, but, like, he didn't make Chimaev work. You're not going to make him tired if you don't work. That's what I was talking about with Anthony Hernandez. Like, Fluffy's going to make him work. Or he's going to try, at least. Like, Anthony Hernandez's wrestling is very good. Probably not Chimaev good, but it might be good enough. It might be good enough to slow down Chimaev. And we know if Fluffy Hernandez gets rolling, and once he gets that second round under his belt, he really starts to roll. Chimaev will shoot off the back foot, but it's not as good. And Dricus, not the greatest wrestler, managed to, get a reversal, almost get a first reversal in the first round. Imagine what Anthony Hernandez could do. But no, he in the fifth, he actually tried. He managed to get on top, get the back of Chimaev, and we saw if that would have happened in the third round, like, who knows just how good Du Plessis would have looked in round 4, 5, and 6. It's a snowball effect. It's going to keep getting better. But no, he just didn't try enough. And I get having to survive against Chimaev, and I get that. It makes complete sense. But you can't go in there and not try for 5 or 4.5 rounds. We'll give him that last 30 seconds and call that half a round. You got to go out there and try. So, like, people are starting to say, like, oh, Dricus is, fraudulent, this, that. No, I don't think he was a fraudulent champion. Look at the run he went on. Robert Whittaker, Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland again. The only champion he didn't fight in that era from Robert Whittaker on was Alex Pereira. And that's because Pereira was tied up with Adesanya, and then he moved up to 205. He's not a fraudulent champion. Chimaev dominates all of those guys just the same as Dricus did, if not worse. Khamzat Chimaev was always inevitable. Like Thanos walking through, I am inevitable. Like, that's exactly what Khamzat Chimaev was from the day he joined the UFC. It's exactly what he was. But now people calling the Dricus Du Plessis era, fraudulent. It's not. It was transitory. It was meant to move us on from the Adesanya Pereira era, the Whitakers, the whole striking era, to this new grappling-based era. And look who's coming up. It's coming more. There's going to be more of them. It's going to be more grappling. Tell you what, let's go look at the web. Let's go see just what this division looks like. I'm at the bottom of the page here. Dricus is a wrestler. Chimaev, obviously, we know what he is. Oh, wait, the rankings are at the top on here now. I forgot. But you look at these, and you got Cal Barrio. Nasruddin Imavov is a striker. Okay? So we can give him kind of credit for being part of the old era. But you also go down, you got Chimaev, Adesanya, Strickland, those two old. Cal Barrio, new. Fluffy Hernandez, new. Renner to Ritter, wrestling. Brendan Allen, wrestler. Jared Cannonier, on his way out. Delize, sucks. Whitaker, on the way out. Vettori, well on his way out. Rodriguez is a striker, but, like, no gas tank. Costa on the way out. Pfeiffer, striker. Usman, we don't know what he's doing, but, like, you look, Ikram, Maleskarov is there. People like Michel Pereira don't survive. Abus Magomedov does not survive. Share Bullet, we saw what happened with him. Park, maybe. Not really, though. Nursultan Ruzaboyev, 4-1. He's really good. But you look at it, like, Kirsten Leroy Duncan's an interesting one also. But the top guys right now are wrestlers. They are all wrestlers. And that's what it's going to take to beat. Now, a rematch? No. No, we're not doing a rematch. No, thank you. No. I want Dricus Du Plessis versus Fluffy. Rematch is a terrible idea. It's going to be the exact same thing. Dricus Du Plessis is not going to be able to, like, get better enough to make up where he lacked, 205, I mean, it's always an option. He's huge. The weight cut sucks, so it is always an option for him. He always wanted to go fight Pereira. I don't have too much thoughts into 205 for him. Now, in our co-main event, Aaron Pico fell flat, literally. Like, he literally was out on his back, dead. And it was crazy. He brought a fight to Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy undefeated at 16-0-1. Now, 17-0-1 because Lerone Murphy knocked out Aaron Pico with a spinning back elbow, second in a row. There's been 10 in UFC history, and 2 of them were in, like, the span of 10 minutes or something like that. But, yeah. He brought the fight early. He was exactly as advertised, Aaron Pico. And we know what Aaron Pico, if you followed him for any amount of time, you know exactly what he's going to bring. High level, almost Olympic level wrestling with really good hands and a left to the body. That's what Aaron Pico's great at. He brought it early. He looked dominant. The left to the body was money. It was very good. Takedowns, hellacious pace, all of it was there. I mean, Aaron Pico looked phenomenal against Lerone Murphy. Now, Murphy looks great. Murphy's a good fighter. He's a smart fighter, and he had to dig deep to win this fight because he was getting drowned by Aaron Pico. Make no mistake about it. He was on his way to finishing Lerone Murphy. Now, I look away from my TV screen for a second. I look back because everybody's screaming, "Oh!" Actually, no, it was Jose. I was looking at my laptop, talking to the guys at MMA Fighting, and Jose's like, "Oh, he dead." Like, Jose's at the event, so I'm like, I'm behind about 30 seconds. I'm like, "Wait, who's dead? Don't tell me who's dead. What?" And then I watch Aaron Pico go. It's like, that was brutal. Lerone Murphy stepped up to the plate when it mattered the most. The fire was hot, and he went and knocked out Pico with his spinning back elbow. He wasn't scared to get in there and exchange with Pico, who was getting the best of him on the feet. Like, all it took was one for Lerone Murphy. It's funny, too, that Lerone Murphy gets that knockout because he's not known for his knockout power. He's a very smart and cerebral fighter. Remember, like, he beat up Edson Barboza, but couldn't put him away. Edson Barboza, who also lost on this card. He needed that. But we also know, I said we know what we're getting with Aaron Pico earlier. We also know what Aaron Pico's about, and his durability is a problem. His durability is a major hamper on his career. Jeremy Kennedy lost. The shoulder came out of socket. Remember that? And they were yanking on it, and he had to be out for a little while. Adam Borks, Henry Corrales, chin problems. Now, that spinning back elbow would have knocked out any featherweight on the planet. Might have knocked out any lightweight on the planet too. But the durability of Aaron Pico is not good at all. That said, the run of Lerone Murphy, despite knowing what Aaron Pico is, and both good and bad, right? We know he's great when he's on, but he gets hurt a lot. Edson Barboza, Dan Ige, Josh Emmett, now Aaron Pico. That's a great 4-fight run. Alexander Volkanovski said he's next. And with that 4-fight run, you give it to him. Now, I know Movsar Evloev deserves the fight more. I know that, yes. But in the lead up to the fight, this was supposed to be Evloev versus Aaron Pico. Evloev had to pull out, and Lerone Murphy steps in short notice. Exactly what the UFC wants from a company guy, right? And as he steps in, Pico says, like, hey, look, he's not ducking. Something serious happened. Now, I don't know if it was an injury, a death in the family, or what, but there was a legitimate reason Aaron Pico said he couldn't fight. Lerone Murphy steps up to the plate and gets the title shot. If Murphy is good enough for Pico to get a title shot next, Pico's good enough for Murphy to get a title shot. And we saw that with, think back like to Benoit Saint-Denis. If he beats Dustin Poirier, he fights Islam, and Poirier wins. Says, okay, well, you get to fight Islam, and we got that epic Islam-Makhachev fight with Dustin Poirier. Yeah, Volkanovski calls him out next. And, I mean, Movsar Evloev is not next, and he's done everything he should to earn it. But against a fight, I still don't favor Murphy or Evloev in that fight. Evloev has a better shot to beat him than Murphy does, but the dynamicism of Alexander Volkanovski and who he's fought recently, hard to beat. Even at 36, 37 years old by the time they fight. And if it's in December, I don't favor Lerone Murphy at all. But it is the logical fight. You go over to the web. You go look at the featherweight rankings here. Volkanovski, Topuria is still in there for some reason. Holloway's still in there for some reason, so we'll skip those. He already beat Yair. Evloev's out. Diego Lopez and John Silver fighting. Ortega versus Funkmaster. Allen, not enough to do it. So Murphy ranked 11 on Tapology, but in UFC rankings, where is he? Lerone Murphy is 6, behind none of those guys because they took out Topuria and Max Holloway. So yeah, that's the logical next fight, and that's the one I think makes the most sense for the simple fact that Murphy, Pico was probably promised a title shot off of this, and Lerone Murphy needs to get it too. Now, I mentioned the second straight spinning back elbow from Lerone Murphy. That's because Carlos Prates got the first one of the night, which is crazy. Destroys Jeff Neal, first round knockout at the buzzer beater. A slow start for Carlos Prates, as he normally does. And it really allowed Jeff Neal to come forward. And Neal was landing on Prates enough, but you could just tell the difference between the motion of the two. Jeff Neal has this plodding footwork, really boxer-y type hands, just going in there to brawl, whereas Prates is like in and out. He's darting around. He's got the long, lanky legs, and he's really starting to put a work on him. And Neal was getting into his face, but Carlos Prates did a good job of getting the distance. That's exactly what you want to see. He's getting the distance. So, the low kick really kind of changed the game for Carlos Prates. Once he started throwing them, it started to slow Jeff Neal down. Jeff Neal didn't want to be in range with any of that. So, once he was in range, once he figured out the speed and the distance, it was game over for Jeff Neal right there. And you could tell, Prates flipped the switch, and it was like, all right, let's go. And it was a brutal, brutal knockout. Spinning back elbow, gashed the side of his head open. Brutal knockout. And Prates, handled that Ian Gary loss well. I mean, he's lost before. He has over 100 fights between boxing, MMA, kickboxing, I think, and Muay Thai, specifically Muay Thai. So it was good to see him bounce back, but we know he can lose, and learning to lose is important. Think about Cody Garbrandt, who never lost, wins the title, loses to TJ, just crashes and burns, right? We've seen a lot with champions that have a huge rise. This was an important fight for Prates, and he managed to go out there and win. Now, he said he wants a quick turnaround. He wants to, build momentum after that Gary loss, and they're going to fight in Rio de Janeiro in October. So it makes sense that they would want to fight there. I like that a lot. I like the quick turnaround because he does, like, after the Ian Gary loss, you're going to have to build momentum back to make yourself known. And the Jeff Neal knockout will be the first step into that, but you need somebody else. And if he can go out there and beat somebody, everybody ahead of him is solid, Everybody ahead of him is solid and has really good cases. Shavkat, Ian Gary's already beat him. Joaquin Buckley just got off of a loss, but, like, he's got some decent wins to his name. MVP offered the fight, though, Michael Venom Page, and that's not a bad idea. Actually, it's an interesting idea. You got a karate versus Muay Thai matchup. I like that. That's exactly what the UFC was born on, and that's exactly what they need to keep doing, and this is an opportunity to do that. Speaking of karate versus Muay Thai, Jared Cannonier got the brakes beat off of him by Michael Venom Page. Woo! So, yeah, man. Usually, Jared, I've been talking about Cannonier for a while. I do want to do a video on him. But usually he has good ideas. Really good in the switching stances and hitting the body. He did really well against, like, Sean Strickland and even, like, Nasruddin Imavov and Gregory Rodriguez. He had, his moments of almost assured destruction. And instead he manages to rally back and get the win. But he was totally perplexed by Michael Page. MVP just did his thing, and it's crazy. You'll see specialists come in like Habib or Michael Venom Page, and it's like, I'm implementing my game, you deal with it. Sean Strickland does the same thing, which is kind of weird. You got game planners like Dricus Du Plessis, and then you've got fighters like Ilia Topuria or Alex Pereira, like, you deal with it. And then you've got, John Jones, who traditionally goes in there and fights a game plan that he think could get him the win, or actually is the hardest path of resistance just to prove how great he is. MVP does that. He implements his own game, and you have to deal with it. His skills are so unique. Now, Joe Rogan's going on about, there's never been point fighters in the UFC, which is a bold-faced lie. He just forgets Stephen Thompson exists, or even Robert Whittaker to an extent. But Michael Page went in there, showed why Jared Cannonier struggles with fighters like Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya, Nasruddin Imavov, and Michael Venom Page. Slick strikers. The only slick striker he really managed to beat was Anderson Silva. And that's because Silva hurt his knee. I think he would have struggled in that fight more. Just absolutely, MVP was untouchable. He really was untouchable in this fight. Even at 38, he's still a puzzle. His skills are so different and so unique. Like, nobody had a shot of dealing with what he brought to the table. Only person really was Ian Gary, which is crazy to think about. Like, that win's aging better and better and better, because, like, the Shara Bullet win, this Jared Cannonier win, like, he's really good at 185. I really want to see him versus Izzy. That would be an interesting fight, because MVP is going to be a hard task for Izzy to do, even at this age. Like, Adesanya is, like, slower now, and his read times are much slower. Like, they're friends, sure, but, like, book the fight. MVP said he would take it. I'm sure Izzy would take it, too. Against the cage, he's very good. Michael Page is very, very good. Cannonier was trying to wrestle, and just his takedown defense was great. Grabbing the underhook, pulling him up. Cannonier was rubbing his head and his braids against the underside of the chin, kind of making life miserable for him, but that didn't do anything to MVP. He was like, okay, don't sweat it. Let's forget it. Let's keep going. And he kept going. He kept winning. But once we had that one moment where he darted and he slipped on the ground, Cannonier got on top and was controlling, and that's the way to beat him. It's not the Diego Lima kick out the legs and catch him while he falls. No. Instead, it's get him out in the middle of the cage, because he's totally reliant on the wall walk. Totally reliant. Now, back to what we were talking about earlier, Carlos Prates. Prates is a beast. Ian Gary picked him apart, right? I think Michael Page will do the same thing, and if not worse. Because Gary, he's a slick striker. He has really good wrestling. But MVP, the puzzle he brings is great. So I want to see that. Prates, MVP was like, if you low kicks, I got something from him. But, like, Carlos Prates isn't just going to low kick. He's not going to telegraph it. It's going to come off the end of combinations and stuff. But at the end of the day, MVP is a force to be reckoned with. And I think middleweight is where he needs to go. Now, opening up the main card, Tim Elliott and Kai Asakura fought. You know, I'm a big fan of Kai Asakura. I think he's really good, but Tim Elliott still has it. He's still awkward. And to be fair, Kai Asakura was getting the best of him until Elliott remembered, oh, wait, this is MMA. I could still wrestle. And he did. He wrestled. So, you know, Asakura's angles are great. He's real good at finding the angles and really landing. But, you know, like that's how I feel about it. His last 2 fights have been just, I can't wrestle. That's how Kyoji Horiguchi beats him. I can't wrestle. And that really kind of doomed him. Great takedowns. You know, Asakura looked horrible on the ground. So the moment he got up, it was kind of like an athleticism thing. Guillotine sunk in for Tim Elliott, and like he stood there for a second. I thought he was gonna go out, but he tapped. He admitted, hey, you got me. Open up the close out the prelims. Baisangar Susakayev defeated Eric Nolan, rear naked choke round 2. Baisangar, however you say his name, Susakayev, I'll call him. Susakayev, I'm not sold on him, honestly. Really good front kicks, but he's very untested, man. This is his longest fight, I believe. A lot of first round finishes. Like, this guy's untested, and if somebody, like, he fights somebody like Eric Nolan's good, and he managed to hurt him. But at the end of the day, like, Nolan hurt his leg. Really good kick. Hurt his leg. Let's give Susakayev his credit. Baisangar Susakayev managed to hurt with the low kick. But he's very untested, and I'm not sold on him just yet. Mikhail Olashechek and Gerald Meerschaert, KO round 1. Jared Meerschaert kept reaching with his lead hand, trying to grab the back of the head. And the first time, Olashechek comes over the top and almost hits Meerschaert. Like, that should send off like alarm bells in his head. Like, hey, that's bad. Don't do that anymore. But instead, no. Jared Meerschaert kind of did it again, and boom, slumped him. Ugly knockout for him here. What else happened on this card? Lupe Godinez beat Jessica Andrade, who is thoroughly washed by now. Alexander Hernandez did a good job of walking Chase Hooper onto a right cross. Hooper was on a really good run, man. After his last loss to Steve Garcia, Fior, Jordan Leavitt, Slava Klosic, you think like he'd be able to handle it. Jim Miller and Clay Guida, but Hernandez, he's a test, you know. 3 wins in a row, though. 3 good wins. I thought he lost the Holloway fight because I'm totally biased, but Austin Hubbard win, and then now Chase Hooper, so you know he's back on track. Edson Barboza lost to Drakkar Close. Karine Silva looked really good against Dion Barboza. That was a rematch that nobody needed to happen, man. Alibi Idris lost to Joseph Morales, despite being the biggest favorite on the card. Morales back in the UFC. Why was he cut last? Is there anything here to tell us? 2 straight losses, 1 to Figueiredo and 1 to Eric Shelton. And he won 1 in the UFC. That's weird that they cut him, but hey, power to him. He's back, and that win is a big one for him. So all in all, I mean, last night's fights were fun. They were fantastic and good to watch. I was happy to see, you know, the coming of a champion, even if I didn't care for the fight, and even if I'm kind of tired of Russian fighters dominating. Like, Chimaev did a good job of coming in and being prepared to go 5 rounds, so it was great. Thanks for sticking with me this far, guys. This was a long episode today. Wow. But in the description, or right here actually, Fight Finders, my baby docuseries. I'm starting production on next episode, maybe next weekend. New Orleans. I hope you guys like it because we're back in New Orleans. So yeah, check it out. All that, I got a book in the bio if you want to go ahead and purchase something to read. It is actually American Shaolin. That's the word.